Hey everyone, Warwick's here. Another Guardian Druid video. They keep making changes to the spec here in the 11th hour as we get close to Dragonflight. As of today, we are 16, as of recording, we are 16 days away from the release of Dragonflight. And Guardian Druid is actually starting to see some real attention paid to it in a way that I think is both pleasantly surprising and also very gratifying to see. So there's been a couple of different tuning changes that have happened. So we're going to look at both posts, and then we're going to talk about how it impacts your potential builds as you get to level 70. So first off, this is from November 10th. This came out here. Dream of Cenarius now does the old version, as you can see here. Basically, just gave you a chance to make your next Virgo 3 instant free and castable in all forms. For Guardian now, it actually makes it so that it also heals for an extra 200% more damage. This talent very similar to the Brewmaster talent Expel Harm, where you can make Expel Harm heal up to 200% more health. So very similar in that vein. Unfortunately, I don't think this changes Dream of Cenarius's outlook as a talent because it's on the bottom left side of the tree, which is still pretty weak in comparison to the middle and the bottom right side of the tree. The biggest buffs though here, Rage of the Sleeper is got its sort of old Legion components back, where you get extra damage done and you get a massive leech buff as well, along with the Reflect and the 25% DR. It also got a cooldown reduction from 1.5 minutes to 1 minute. I think this now makes Rage of the Sleeper very worthy of being a capstone talent, and I think now, with the loss of control, like it doesn't really matter because you're getting that extra 15% damage bonus and the 25% leech, so more sustain in a spec that has a ton of sustain built into it around it. 25% DR plus a 15% damage increase and the Reflect, when you combine that with Brambles as well, is going to make it so that during Rage of the Sleeper Brambles combo, which will be overlapping for 10 seconds at a time, you're going to be reflecting a lot of damage, doing more damage, and you're getting, of course, all the defensive benefits of Rage of the Sleeper. So I think this now becomes potentially standard in a lot of builds. I still think there's potential for you to skip this in certain positions, but it's finally back to being kind of what everyone expected it to be when it was first announced that it was coming back into the game as a talent. So love this change. I'm a big Rage of the Sleeper fan. I was even in its old version, just because anytime you can get a 25% DR on a 90-second cooldown, very similar to like Ardent Defender for prop paladins, which is a 20% DR, you take it. And then Tooth and Claw made it so that when you get these Maul procs, they actually cost no rage. So you can get a free Maul and get an Iron Fur proc off. So you can choose to use this on like a primary funnel target, say for example a Shard of Halkias. You got groundskeepers around it, or you're pulling all the casters around it. You Shard of Halkias the big mob. Of course, and then you get this proc, you just maul everything else, but you can still Iron Fur with your 40 rage in order to keep up defenses on everything else going on around you as well. I love this change. I think Tooth and Claw now, I think, should be pretty standard in most every build, which means that we have some real nice options in the tree for potential single target and AoE type setup builds. But Blizzard wasn't done. The very next day, they gave Guardian Druid a 50% aura buff to a number of spells. Basically, it was an across-the-board 50% aura buff. This doesn't mean that their damage is increased by 50%. In total, it was about a 25% damage increase across the board when you consider the damage of everything. And they made a few other changes here that I think are really important. So after the Wildfire, which is a choice node just below Survival of the Fittest, got a 4-yard increase to 12 yards and a massive buff from 150% of attack power to 600% of attack power. I think this now makes this a very strong choice in raid situations in particular, but I think in Mythic Plus as well, it has some potential to be really nice. And it opens up some pathing options on the right side of the tree in order to allow for some different variety in gameplay builds. Pulverize got a big damage buff from 96% to 135% of attack power. Again, Pulverize, much like Dream of Cenarius, is in that bottom left side of the tree, so I don't think it makes much difference in its value as a talent because you're not really going to go down the left side of the tree. Reinforced Fur, they made the additional armor doubled from 4% to 8%, so it feels a little less bad to take this talent. Ultimately, I still think if there's a way for you to skip it and still get down the middle of the tree, you can. And with the Tooth and Claw changes, I think that's going to be your standard way to get down the middle part of the tree now. And then Scintillating Moonlight got a buff from 2 and 4% to 5 and 10%, which really impacts the damage reduction side of things. So massive buff to Scintillating Moonlight, which was already pretty much a guaranteed talent pick anyways. Now it's, to me, even more so. And these buffs overall, I think, are really, really nice. So let's take a look at the tree itself. We're just going to focus on the Guardian tree because this tree is probably not getting touched for a while. You still pick probably the same setups that you would in almost any case for Raid and Mythic Plus. But on this side of the tree, I think this opens up the options. Now, your first talent points right here, your first 8, I think are pretty much pick and choose what you want. Now, for a Mythic Plus build, you definitely want Flashing Claws at the very least. You can go Earth Warden, but I think with some of the other stuff going on in this tree, that makes this talent point potentially a skippable talent. And then I think you're going to grab Tooth and Claw because it does have value on bosses, even though it's not going to see much play on trash. I mean, you might maul when you get it for free, but for the most part, you're not going to be using it a lot on the trash side, but it's still going to be important for bosses. Bosses, even on Fortified Week, are still important to kill. And of course, you're going to get your Fury of Nature. Now, obviously, we still want to get down this side of the tree. And the former path, the path that a lot of people were taking initially, was there was thoughts that Ursoc's Endurance could be a play here. And it still might be if you're looking for a very defensive build, where you go Ursoc's Endurance into Layered Mane, into Reinforced Fur, especially now that it's been buffed, where you just get longer Iron Fur, longer Bark Skin, better chance to get 2 stacks of Iron Fur, and that Iron Fur and Bark Skin are doing more for you. These are straight up pure defensive builds that you can go with, that I think have value in sort of early progression content when you're a little bit under geared versus the content that you're doing. But once you start to overgear the content, or you find a really big level of comfort with the content that you're doing, then these trio of talents might find their way to falling off. So I think there is a potential that you go Gory Fur into Survival of the Fittest into After the Wildfire, so that you can get down this side of the tree. We're going to skip this right here now, which allows you to get the extra 15% haste and the reduced cost of maul. I think of the 3 Berserk talents, this is the one that is the most skippable. So, of course, we're going to grab Circle of Life and Death. We're going to grab Incarn and the Ursoc's Guidance talent. And then we're going to go this path. And you're definitely going to grab Rage of the Sleeper now. That leaves you with 1 point left to spend. Variety of ways that you can spend this, I think. You can go, I think the easiest choice will be Blood Frenzy. For raid purposes, you can go Vicious Cycle if you're looking at a more pure single target oriented situation and where you're an off tank, where you can take advantage of the fact that you're going to get the, you get your free mangles and then you get your free mauls off of Tooth and Claw. And they're going to do 40% more damage plus another 45% more damage, so a grand total of 85% more damage. Makes Maul a very powerful single target, kind of one hitter quitter type ability. You still can't put it into this Berserk for the 15% haste solely. Soul of the Forest is there potentially for a more raid oriented build as well, but I think in Mythic Plus you just go with Blood Frenzy. So I think kind of at the level 70 level with Mythic Plus, check, there it is, nothing's getting hidden. I think this is probably going to be the build that you go with. Really the only points to potentially switching around is you may need to get Earth Warden. You can drop Blood Frenzy on like pure single target fights for something like Vicious Cycle, or you could drop these points out of Survival of the Fittest and After the Wildfire into getting something like Ursoc's Endurance, Layered Mane into Soul of the Forest or something along those lines. So there are some options where you can go Gory Fur, Layered Mane, Soul of the Forest. The middle of this tree has now gone from being very boring to, I think, one of the more interesting parts of the tree itself, because I think there's a lot of different ways that you can play the spec. Now, I think that even in Raid, you could potentially even remove these Flashing Claws talents so that you can get more defensiveness if you need to, because you can get, if you want this Berserk, you get it through Tooth and Claw. So I think there is potential for you to even skip Flashing Claws in a raid setting. So you drop Blood Frenzy, Flashing Claws, you get 3 more points. All of a sudden now you can spend that in another point of Survival Instincts if you need big cooldowns. You can grab Ursoc's Endurance into Layered Mane into grab that. Or you can come Gory Fur, which you already have. You can grab Layered Mane with Soul of the Forest. to help with your that, or you can even just skip these talents completely, get Soul of the Forest, and then maybe grab something more utility type in a better Stampeding Roar, because you get a flat 5% movement speed during that. So there's plenty of really cool options now in this tree that allow you to have these like flex niche picks in your tree. I think for Mythic Plus, like I said, this is probably going to be the standard build. I think in Raid, you could even see something like this where you take away these two talents. We need 2 up here. So you could do something like for Raid, you could grab Vicious Cycle and like front of the pack to give you some utility. You could grab Ursox or ISI to give you a little bit more defensiveness. I'd probably do this because it's more consistent defensive, and then go like this path where again you grab Convoke and then you grab like these 4 talents here, and you still have 1 point to spend, so you can still get like Blood Frenzy if you want. You can put a point in Thrash. You can stick a point over here in Soul of the Forest, which is what I'd probably do, just because you get more damage off the Mangle, which is going to be more valuable in a raid setting than you would in Mythic Plus. So like there's some really nice build possibilities here with this talent here giving you 30% cooldown off your bark skin. Of course, you take this talent over here during your thing, so you get a point here, you're getting a point here potentially, so now you're looking at 6 seconds of bark skin improvement. So now you're getting 14 seconds of bark skin plus 10 seconds of Rage of the Sleeper, where you're just reflecting all the damage back. Incarn is going to be around a 2-minute cooldown with Ursox Guidance, so basically you can run cooldowns basically every minute, which is nice, between bark skin and Rage, and then every 2 minutes you're going to be completely godlike with Ursox Guidance prompting Incarn. You're now taking 10% more damage reduction through Scintillating Moonlight. You're going to get 25% through here, so you're talking 35%. Bark Skin is going to give you another 20%. All of a sudden now, between your 3-layered, but just between before Incarn, you're getting 55% damage reduction every minute, and then you're also getting 30% maximum health when you Berserk, or when you Incarn. So like, all of a sudden now, Guardian Druid, I think, is it going to be the best tank in the game? Probably not. I think Prout Warrior and Vengeance Demon Hunter still are pretty strong considerations to hold that title. But is Guardian Druid now up to speed with terms of the power level of all the rest of the tanks in Shadowlands? Yes. Is it the worst tank in the game still? It might not be anymore. You might see something like Brewmaster Monk start to slip down a little bit and see that, because Brewmaster has virtually no way to do magic damage. Like, it doesn't stagger it all that well anymore. So you might see something like Brewmaster Monk being considered now kind of by a lot of people being the worst tank. I haven't really dug into the overall sort of reception of the tanks and kind of dug into it myself yet. I just, I saw these changes go out. I've had my son the last couple of days for the long weekend, and this is the first chance I got to make a video for it, so I'm making a video on it now, and I'm going to be taking a look at kind of the overall reaction to these changes through different streamers, through Twitter, through Discord. I know the Dreamgrove Discord, shout outs to the Dreamgrove Discord, the Guardian Druid section is pretty happy overall with the changes. It doesn't change some of the fundamental flaws of the tree. Like, I still think Vulnerable Flesh is a big problem in this tree. The bottom left side of the tree basically is virtually dead. I know there are some people that have speculated on a Moonfireless build that doesn't do as much in the way of Moonfire, but you get Fury of Nature, Circle, and then you grab these, but then you can skip these points, and then you skip most of this. Like, you grab Scintillating Moonlight, Blood Frenzy, Rage, and you skip these and go more on this side, but I don't think those builds are going to end up being viable long term. So there's still some fundamental problems with this side of this part of the tree right here. I think is pretty poor. A couple of these talents I think are going to end up being pretty dead overall. And talent like Vulnerable Flesh just isn't exciting for where it needs to be on the tree. I think if it did something where, like when it is off a Tooth and Claw proc, not only is it free, but it can cleave other targets. All of a sudden, Maul now becomes very interesting use in Mythic Plus. Does that end up breaking the spec? Maybe, but I think it's fine for Bear to be in the spotlight for the first time since Legion. So that's just my personal opinion, though. And the gameplay itself for the Guardian Druid spec still doesn't have a lot of depth to it. So it's still very, very simple to pick up, still very simple to master. And as I've said before, there's nothing really that allows a great Guardian Druid to separate themselves from a sort of newer or mid-level Guardian Druid that, you know, maybe they're tanking and they've heard this spec was easy to learn, so they picked it up and they're just kind of rolling with it. Like, a good blood DK and a not so great blood DK is very easy to tell. Same with Prout Warrior. I would argue even with Vengeance, Prout Paladin, and Brewmaster Monk as well. Like, really good players of those specs versus players that aren't that great at it, I think are very easy to figure, you know, easy to notice. Not so much with Guardian Druid, so I'd like to see some gameplay depth added in that allows the spec to have something for longtime players or very skilled players to really min-max and take advantage of. Right now, it still doesn't really have that, but from a power level standpoint, I think that this spec is now very much ready for Dragonflight, very much ready for the challenges that are going to come with Season 1 Mythic Plus, and of course, probably some of the mid to late heroic bosses, and of course, Mythic rating bosses where the raid content is going to be challenging. So overall, thank you, Blizzard, for doing the things that, not everything that we suggested, but a lot of the things that obviously your data said were the right calls to make. I think that you've done a good job with this tree now, making some, even though the pathing is still fairly limited compared to other specs, you still make the pathing choices here with, do you go this route, this route, this route, this route? Like, all of them in the middle of this tree have viable reasons to be chosen. And so I just want to say thank you very much for doing that, Blizzard. For those of you that are looking at potentially manning a new tank, Guardian Druid I would put back on the list now because it has the power level of other tanks, but does have a little bit of a more straightforward gameplay from a just pure bear standpoint that allows you to still be successful. Is it going to be the best tank of the game? I don't think it will be, but is it going to be on the level of most of the other tanks? Yes. That's the TLDR version of this. So, end of this one, guys. Thank you very much for sticking around with me. Like, share, subscribe to the video if you want to see more Guardian Druid content. I've got a Feral video that I actually recorded and edited, but because of these changes, it's been pushed back to release on Monday. I'm releasing this on a Saturday. I have my normal weekly reaction video going out Sunday, and then the Feral video will go out Monday, and I've got some other plans for Druid videos going out through the week, looking at Feral or looking at Resto and looking at Balance's kind of state right now. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about things going on in Dragonflight in terms of the Mythic Plus testing, the new affix. We're going to look at all of that as we move forward into Dragonflight. So until the next video, I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you're enjoying yourselves. You're having fun. You keep on gaming, and I will see you all in the next video.